95% of your daily stress comes from situations that exist only in your head. Your biggest enemy isn't the person who hurt you or the world that seems unfair. Your biggest enemy is the voice inside your skull creating imaginary problems 24 hours a day. Napoleon Hill discovered these principles when he studied the most successful people in history, but he only revealed half the story. There were 5 ancient techniques so powerful that Roman emperors used them to conquer nations while maintaining perfect inner peace. These habits can reprogram how your brain processes pain, rejection, and failure. Master them, and you'll possess emotional weapons that 99% of people will never understand. The most emotionally powerful man in ancient Rome wasn't Caesar or any emperor. He was a crippled slave named Epictetus whose master broke his leg for entertainment. While other slaves went insane from torture, Epictetus made a discovery that sounds impossible. He realized that no external event, not pain, not loss, not even death, has any power over your emotional state. The suffering you feel doesn't come from what happens to you. It comes from your resistance to what's already happening. This revelation became the foundation for 5 practices that can make you emotionally unbreakable. But what he discovered first would shock most people today. Habit 1: Negative visualization. Every morning, Roman Stoics would spend 5 minutes imagining everything they loved being completely destroyed. Your job gone. Your relationships ended. Your health failing. Your money lost. They called this Premeditatio Malorum, the premeditation of evils. This isn't depression or negative thinking. It's emotional vaccination. When you regularly visualize loss, 2 things happen in your brain. First, you develop real gratitude for what you currently have instead of taking it for granted. Second, when actual problems hit, the emotional shock is reduced because you've already mentally rehearsed handling them. Seneca was Rome's wealthiest man, yet he practiced this daily. When Emperor Nero eventually forced him to take his own life, witnesses reported he faced death with impossible calm. He had prepared for that exact moment every single morning. The technique works because it shifts your relationship with temporary things. Instead of building your identity around keeping what you have, you learn to appreciate it while it's here and accept when it's gone. You're not trying to depress yourself, you're building mental armor. Start small. Spend 3 minutes each morning imagining one important thing in your life disappearing. Notice how this makes you appreciate it more throughout the day. But this practice alone won't save you when real crisis hits without the second habit. Habit 2: Dichotomy of control. Marcus Aurelius commanded Roman armies while barbarian tribes tried to destroy his empire. His secret for maintaining sanity under impossible pressure was devastatingly simple. Every morning, he divided all his concerns into 2 lists: things he could control and things he couldn't control. Then he spent mental energy only on the first list. This sounds obvious, but most people do the exact opposite. They obsess over other people's opinions, economic crashes, natural disasters, aging, and death, all things completely outside their influence. Meanwhile, they neglect their own thoughts, choices, responses, and daily actions, the only things they actually can control. You can't control whether people like you, but you can control how you treat them. You can't control market conditions, but you can control your spending habits. You can't control other people's decisions, but you can control your responses to those decisions. When plague struck his armies, Marcus couldn't stop the disease, but he could control medical supplies and troop morale. When senators plotted against him, he couldn't prevent their schemes, but he could control his own actions and decisions. The practice requires brutal honesty about your real power. Write down everything that's stressing you right now. Then mark each item as either I can influence this or I cannot influence this. Stop thinking about the second list completely. This mental discipline transforms everything, but it's worthless without the third habit that most people find terrifying. Habit 3, Evening Reflection. Every night before sleep, Seneca would examine his day with surgical honesty. Not to torture himself, but to extract wisdom from both mistakes and successes. He asked himself 3 specific questions. What did I do well today? What could I have done better? What did I learn that will make me stronger tomorrow? This practice is dangerous because most people turn it into brutal self-criticism that destroys confidence. The key is approaching your failures with curiosity rather than judgment. You're a scientist studying your own behavior, not a prosecutor condemning your mistakes. When something went wrong, Seneca would ask, "What can I learn from this that will make me more capable?" Then he would visualize himself handling similar situations differently in the future. This programs your brain with better responses instead of just replaying problems. But he also reviewed successes. When something went well, he analyzed exactly why it worked so he could repeat it. Most people remember their failures vividly but forget their victories, creating a distorted view of their abilities. The evening reflection includes gratitude, but not the shallow kind. Instead of listing random things you're thankful for, identify specific moments when you could have reacted badly but chose a better response. This reinforces your growing emotional control. Spend 10 minutes before bed asking these 3 questions. Write down your answers. Watch how quickly your decision-making improves. Yet all this self-awareness means nothing without the 4th habit that separates warriors from weaklings. Habit 4, Voluntary Discomfort. Roman Stoics deliberately exposed themselves to cold, hunger, physical pain, and social awkwardness. This wasn't masochism, it was training. They understood that comfort addiction creates emotional fragility. When everything is easy, small problems feel enormous. When you avoid all discomfort, minor pain becomes a crisis. Seneca, despite his wealth, would regularly eat bread and water for days, sleep on hard floors, and wear rough clothing. He was proving to his subconscious mind that he could handle more than luxury had taught him to expect. Modern life eliminates discomfort, but this makes you weak. You can't handle delayed gratification because you're used to instant everything. You can't handle criticism because you've been protected from negative feedback. You can't handle physical discomfort because you've avoided it your entire life. Voluntary discomfort works by expanding your tolerance through controlled exposure. When you deliberately choose minor hardships, involuntary major hardships become manageable. It's like building physical muscle, you stress the system in controlled ways so it becomes stronger. Start with something small. Take cold showers for a week. Fast for 16 hours once. Walk instead of driving. Sleep without your phone. Notice how your mind reacts to minor deprivation and how much stronger you feel afterward. The practice also breaks the cycle of constantly chasing pleasure. When you can be content with less, you appreciate more. When you're not afraid of discomfort, you're free to take risks that could transform your life. But there's one final habit that ties everything together and reveals the ultimate truth about emotional suffering. Habit 5, Present Moment Awareness. Marcus Aurelius discovered that all emotional pain comes from mental time travel. You suffer when your mind visits the past through regret, shame, and resentment. You suffer when your mind jumps to the future through anxiety, worry, and fear. But you never suffer in the actual present moment unless there's immediate physical danger. Think about it. Right now, as you're listening to this, are you actually in pain? Or is your suffering coming from thoughts about past mistakes or future problems? The present moment, this exact second, is usually perfectly manageable. Present moment awareness means recognizing that the past exists only as memories and the future exists only as imagination. Neither has any power over you right now. All your actual power exists in this current moment, in the thoughts you're thinking, the choices you're making, and the responses you're giving. When anxiety hits, ask yourself, what actual problem exists right now that requires immediate action? Usually, there isn't one. Your mind is creating suffering by imagining future scenarios that may never happen. When depression strikes, ask, what from my past is controlling my current emotional state? Then remind yourself that past events have no power in the present unless you give them that power through current thoughts. The practice is simple but difficult. Throughout the day, notice when your mind drifts to past or future. Gently bring attention back to what's actually happening right now. What you're seeing, hearing, feeling in this exact moment. This is where your real power lies. This awareness eliminates most emotional suffering because you stop creating problems that don't actually exist in current reality. But here's the warning nobody gives you about these practices. The biggest mistake people make with Stoic practices is turning emotional control into emotional suppression. Some use these techniques to avoid feeling anything rather than learning to feel without being controlled by feelings. This creates fake wisdom while actually increasing inner tension. True emotional mastery doesn't eliminate feelings, it changes your relationship with them. You still experience anger, fear, sadness, and desire, but these become information rather than commands. They inform your decisions instead of controlling your actions. Start with just one habit and practice it consistently for 30 days before adding another. Most people try to transform overnight and quit when it feels overwhelming. Real change happens through small, consistent practices that compound over time. Remember that some emotions are appropriate and useful. Healthy anger can motivate justice. Reasonable fear prevents dangerous mistakes. Love creates valuable connections. The goal isn't becoming emotionless, it's becoming emotionally intelligent. These 5 habits worked for slaves, soldiers, and emperors because human nature hasn't changed. Your mind still creates most of your suffering through resistance to reality. But now you have the tools to change that. Which of these 5 habits challenges you the most? The death practice that forces you to face loss? The evening reflection that demands honest self-examination? Drop your answer in the comments because your biggest resistance reveals your biggest opportunity for growth. If this gave you even one insight that could change how you handle stress, hit that subscribe button for more life-changing wisdom that Napoleon Hill would have envied. What habit will you start practicing today?